Hi, Lianna Alvarez here. We're getting ready to go shoot our show here on KLAV 1230 AM radio. We have a really special guest, so come inside and we'll go meet her. So we've got Terri Garcia-Linares of Alterra Home Loan, and we're going to be talking about the loan and financing process. And Terri, hi, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. You excited about today's show?
I am. I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. Well, everybody tune in and you'll hear us live shortly.
All right.
Come on this way. Welcome Las Vegas to the Lianna Alvarez Show, Las Vegas Real Estate, The Insider's Edge, and I'm your host, Lianna Alvarez. This is the most important hour of radio every Sunday on KLAV 1230 AM radio, the talk of Las Vegas. Thank you for joining me. The Real Estate Radio Network is a national network of local real estate professionals delivering timely truth, balanced truths, local market conditions in an effort to help Americans maintain good credit, minimize debt, and achieve the dream of home ownership. The Lianna Alvarez Show is dedicated to rebuilding Las Vegas's housing and credit markets. Within every market, there are solutions, as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted advice. I will be delivering it to you every Sunday at 2 p.m. right here on KLAV 1230 AM radio, the talk of Las Vegas. And let me just ask my listeners today and all my lifers out there, do you ever wonder what goes on behind the scenes with the loan process? Or why lenders are always asking for so much paperwork, or those never-ending explanations of what you did with your own money? Well, then definitely you want to listen in today's show, because we have Terri Garcia-Linares of Alterra Home Loans with us today live in studio. Welcome, Terri.
Thanks, Lianna. I'm so happy to be here and really excited that you have asked me to be on your show.
Oh, well, I think it just is always going to benefit all of our listeners to really have those timely truths and the background information. And obviously with the loan process, there's so much that our listeners can always learn from.
There is. The loan process is definitely what we just said, a process. So we'll definitely spend some time on that this hour.
Okay, well, wonderful. So I have to start off. We know, I've worked with Terri for many years, and I have to say we have that whole hyphenated last name thing going on, which I always get incorrectly. I hope I did get it correct today.
You did get it correct. Garcia is my maiden name. Leonidas is my married name.
Okay, wonderful. And how long have you been in Vegas now?
I've been in Vegas. This August will be 13 years. I moved here in 2001, in August of 2001.
Oh, so we can kind of call you a native now.
I have been told that after that 10-year mark, I'm officially a native.
But for those of us that are true natives, it's much longer than 10 years.
Very true, very true.
All right, well, wonderful. So just kind of give us a little bit of background. I think you're, originally from Oregon?
I was born in Idaho, but raised in Oregon in the Willamette Valley, and a very small town. I went to college about 30 minutes from my hometown at Oregon State University, so I am, in fact, an Oregon State Beaver, thank you, not a duck.
And I always say, University of Oregon?
No, that's the Ducks.
Oh, okay.
I'm Oregon State University.
So we want beavers, not ducks.
Exactly,
okay.
Yes.
All right. So
thank you.
We've got
Orange
that clear.
and black.
All right, and then how about just some background? I know you have a very versatile, diversified background within the loan industry.
Just a really quick background on me. When I first moved to Vegas, like I said, in August 2001, it was right after September 11th. Okay. And my original goal was to get hired, and my background was a bookkeeper for a large chain store. So I wanted to get into the HR department of a casino.
Oh, okay.
But as you know, everybody stopped hiring right after that event.
Right.
And I was sent out on a job from a temp agency to Countrywide Home Loans the beginning of September, actually the end of September in 2001, and I've been in the mortgage business ever since.
Wonderful. And
yes.
For those of you, maybe you remember, some of you may not, Countrywide was a huge mortgage bank within our loans nationwide, and they were actually bought out by Bank of America.
Correct.
So a lot of those loans were transferred over. Okay. And then I know you haven't always been a loan officer on the front end. You kind of are able to always bring a dynamic understanding to each file and transaction that you do by having a little bit of processing and kind of behind the scenes?
Yes, for many years I was a closer. So I actually drew the loan docs. I worked a lot with escrow and title to get the fundings done. So that was my original step into the mortgage business.
So not the type of closer we see on those mafia movies.
No, not that kind of closer. Not that kind of closer.
Okay.
A funder closer.
Okay.
So I did that for many years, and then when I moved over to the builder side, KB Home Loans, I became a processor. And I was a processor for many years. And then after becoming a processor, I was a loan coordinator. So I coordinated with the loan officer and the processors to make sure the loans went smooth and got done. And then I've been originating for about the last 4 years, and I'm licensed in both Oregon and Nevada.
Okay, so for our listeners out there that are wondering, if you're listening and you're thinking, okay, who's a processor, what's a closer, what's an originator, a lot of these are terms that we use within the industry. If you could kind of give us maybe the basis or the timeline basis of what the process is, where from when the person starts the loan process, who it goes to, and kind of what the basis is.
Sure. Most times a new home buyer who's looking to get financing will start with the originator, which is me, and the loan, or what's called the loan officer, and they will spend most of their time communicating without a loan officer. But once the loan officer has a full complete package from the homeowner, from the potential homeowner, and they're in contract, they're ready to buy a home within 30 days, that file actually goes to the processor. And the processor is like the heart and soul of the entire loan transaction. They're the ones that do the verifications of employment. They're the ones that coordinate everything with title and escrow, the underwriters, the loan officers. They usually don't have a lot of contact with the buyers.
Okay.
However, they're the ones that really do the bulk of the work.
Okay, and if you're just starting to listen into our show, you are listening to the Lianna Alvarez Show, Las Vegas Real Estate, The Insider's Edge, here at KLAV 1230 AM Radio, the talk of Las Vegas. I'm your host, Lianna Alvarez, and joining me here live in studio today is Terri Garcia-Linares of Altera Home Loans, and we're just discussing kind of the loan process and what the different individuals are that kind of handle each of the different stages of the loan. So we just finished up talking about the process.
Right, and so once the loan is approved from the underwriter and we're ready to go to closing, that's when our closer and our funding take place. So those are the three main jobs that I've held in the mortgage business.
Okay,
So,
wonderful.
as you can see, they're the highlights of most loan transactions.
Okay, great. And how did you, I know you kind of talked briefly, you kind of happened into loans. What's kept you in loans and financing for all these years?
It's actually a great story. The first day that I arrived on my temp job at Countrywide Home Loans, I was the receptionist and I was answering like a 25 phone line, and it was ringing off the hooks. The rates were in the 2%. I mean, it was just crazy. And I just, at noon, I remember looking up thinking, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Really?
I had no idea about origination points, about discount points, about hardly anything about the mortgage industry, but I was so eager to learn, and I knew it was something that I could do and make a career out of it and wanted to do. The thought of giving, being a small part in somebody's, dream of owning a home.
Wonderful.
So that's what's always kept me in this business, and I love it.
So you had your aha moment that very first
That
day.
very first day at Countrywide, and I've told the story several times, but it never changes.
Right. Okay, well, that's awesome. I mean, I know you kind of have a different dynamic with working with a lot of your clients than necessarily, just putting people into a loan product, pushing them through the system and moving on, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. I keep in contact with 99% of all my homeowners that have closed loans with me, and even ones that haven't for some reason or not. It's such a daunting process sometimes. You just become so close to them.
Right. I always tell my clients, it's almost, you go through this real estate transaction and you're constantly in contact, you're speaking a lot of times, multiple times a day, and you go through the closing process, and then all of a sudden, I still keep in touch with my clients, but we're not speaking to them every day. So it's almost like a amicable divorce.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a lot of people have said, there's, they say that there's 5 very stressful events in a person's life, and one of those events is buying a home.
Yes.
So we are part of somebody's stressful event, and we try to do what we can to make that not be as stressful as people tend to, promote it.
Right, and it's kind of about educating them on the process up front so that they're familiar and aware of the exact process and the timeline and what they can expect communication-wise. I know communication's also a big key. I think you have a little saying or something regarding communication on your background.
When in doubt, always communicate. I strongly believe the more information you have, information is power, as they say. The more information you have up front, and that's why I try to prepare all my homeowners before they're even in contract of what to expect and what the process is going to be like, so that at the end they're thinking to themselves, hopefully, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Right, and I think that's the biggest key. I know even with my own clientele is really, as you educate and you inform, whether it's somebody that's a first-time buyer or somebody that has purchased multiple properties, every bank is different. Every process is somewhat very specific to each lender. But, for you listening out there to know and to understand what to expect, it's going to help take care of any of those, questions or apprehensions that you might have at the beginning of the process.
Yep, that's all very true. Every bank, every loan officer, everybody is a little bit different, but in general, we all have the same process and same guidelines that we all have to adhere to. So it's all about preparing the new homeowners, the potential buyers.
Right. Okay. Well, just for everybody that's listening out there, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break. Coming up, we're going to share some very more exciting news about the loan process with Terri Garcia-Linares. You'll definitely want to stay tuned. We're going to be talking about a little document and something that Terri goes by called the 10 Commandments. So you definitely want to stay tuned. You're going to hear a little bit about the do's and don'ts, the importance of timelines. So you definitely don't want to miss out. You're listening in to the Lianna Alvarez Show, Las Vegas Real Estate, The Insider's Edge, on KLAV 1230 AM radio, the talk of Las Vegas. And welcome back, lifers. You're listening to the Las Vegas Real Estate Show, The Insider's Edge, on KLAV 1230 AM, the talk of Las Vegas. I'm your host, Lianna Alvarez. Welcome back, and thank you for staying tuned. For all my lifers that are out there listening, for those of you that are new to the show, my lifers are my reference that I make to my clients. I like to keep my clients, I look at the big picture, and they become a long-term client, a life client. So we refer to them here as lifers, which are our listeners. So we're here live in studio with Terri Garcia-Linares of Altera Home Loans. Thank you for joining me today. We're kind of talking about the loan process, financing, all that good stuff that kind of goes with it.
Thanks, Lianna. It's great to be here.
All right. So before the break, we were talking about a little bit of your professional background, your personal background, kind of an initial introduction into the loan process. What an originator is, a processor, underwriter, all those things. And we were going to come back and talk about, kind of those do's and don'ts of financing. But before I get in with that, I kind of just want to touch base real briefly on, the local real estate market. I know I get to see it firsthand from, being a realtor perspective. For those of you that don't stay as up to date on the numbers of real estate, our inventory has been increasing. I don't know about you guys, but for us, we've really seen an increase in activity over the last, 3 to 4 weeks.
Absolutely. Our applications are up. Our pre-quals are up. Our contracts are up. We definitely have seen a spike since about right after the holidays.
Right. So, some people believe that they tend to take off during the holidays just because a lot of people don't want to have to move or deal with the transaction base during the holidays, although we don't really have the weather factor to be concerned with here.
It's definitely hit and miss. The following year in 2012, December was my busiest month.
Yeah, same here.
2013, it was not as busy, but it was still, fairly busy.
Right. And my philosophy is I always think it's a much better time to, for business. A lot of individuals take off that time from work to go on holidays, but if you're looking to buy or sell, even in the first quarter or the last quarter, those are going to be individuals that are very serious about buying and selling their homes because they're willing to do so during a busy period. So we definitely keep that momentum going. I kind of saw a little bit of a lull the beginning of January, but it's definitely picked back up and our numbers have increased. We teeter right now around, 8,700 to 9,000 units. That's total inventory. Our single family residences are, about 6,800 to 7,000, which is a nice increase from last summer where we were down to 3,500 units, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that made the lending process a little difficult for your buyers as well.
It did. We would go through a pre-qual process, which I'm sure, a lot of the agents, realtors want to make sure the buyers pre-approved ahead of time before the shopping starts.
Okay, and what exactly is the difference? Let's tell the listeners, what's the difference between a pre-qual and a pre-approval?
Well, a pre-qual a lot of the time is just a credit pre-qual, which means your credit, the client's credit is pulled and the score is where it needs to be, but not everything is taken into effect. The taxes have not been reviewed, the pay, the employment, because there's a lot more that goes into a pre-qual, a full pre-approval than just a pre-qual.
So really, and I know in our market here, we really have to see a pre-approval to know that borrower is really, able to get a loan.
Well, not only is it good for you, but it's good for the client. They need to know they don't want to fall in love with a house that they can't purchase.
Right.
So it's really important for them, for you, for everybody. And what was happening back when the inventory was a little bit lower is we would pre-approve those clients, but it would take them months and months and months to find a home.
So maybe their situations changed a bit over that time.
Exactly. The rates change. They might have a reduction in hours. They might have spent some of the money that they were saving. So there's definitely a lot of things that can happen in that kind of a time frame when that inventory was low. But now we're seeing pre-approvals and them getting into contract within 30 to 60 days, sometimes even, faster than that.
Right. And for those of you listening out there that are thinking about selling properties, this information is actually very relevant because it's not only applicable to buyers, but on the selling side, you need to actually ensure that the basis and everything for the sellers and the offers that are coming in are valid offers, right?
Absolutely. We want to just make sure everybody's the most prepared for you and the seller. We don't want them to be in contract for 30 days and then something happened in the last week and then they have to start the process all over again.
Right, because that would just basically, lengthen the time and the process and everything for both sides, both the buyers and the sellers. And if you're just joining us, you're listening to the Lianna Alvarez Show, Real Estate Las Vegas, the Insider's Edge, here at KLAV, 1230 AM radio, the talk of Las Vegas. I'm your host, Lianna Alvarez, and we have Terri Garcia-Linares of Altera Home Loans with us today, just kind of talking about the loan and financing process and really the importance of it on both the buying and the selling side. A lot of times sellers think, well, it doesn't apply to us. We're not the ones that are getting the loan. But really, for you to understand both sides of it, it's going to help strengthen the process. And when you're looking and reviewing those offers, to know what offers are the strongest, and also to make sure that, you're pre-approving those individuals.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, and I don't want to speak for you, but one of the things we get is cash buyers. Cash buyers are winning out, are getting the properties because they think the transaction will go a lot quicker and smoother. And really, on a prepared finance buyer, it goes just as quick as a cash transaction. Right. And it can go just as quick as a cash transaction.
And a lot of times people feel that if they're going up against cash buyers, that they're always going to be beat out by the cash buyer. And I know from my own personal experience, there's times that we come in working with an educated, knowledgeable, full-time realtor. You can go in, and if you're writing a really strong offer, we refer to them as clean. You know, you're not asking for a bunch of layers and additional things. You can a lot of times get beat out by the cash buyers, because the other thing is, a lot of times those cash buyers are investors, and they tend to want to get the best value for the property, so they might be coming in a little bit lower on those offers. So
yeah, and I do get phone calls quite often, actually, from the listing side, from the selling side, asking me, you know, did you just pre-qual this buyer? Did you do a full pre-approval? You know, and it's great when I get those phone calls, because 99% of the time we get the contract. I let them know I've reviewed tax returns. I've, you know, run the AUS, which is the automated underwriting system. We have the ability to do all that, like we talked about, you know, a few minutes ago. No surprises.
Right, and I know even on my selling side, I do that with the offers that come in. We want to verify and ensure that the paperwork that the other end, the other side, has done their homework as well.
Yeah.
So just before the break, we were talking about those wonderful do's and don'ts of financing, and you know, what are, you know, I think you have a document that we refer to a lot as the 10 Commandments, the do's and don'ts of financing. Maybe you can kind of just give us a little tease of, you know, kind of what's on there, what's some, you know, a few pointers.
I would love to. This is definitely something I pass out when I first meet a client, excuse me. When I first meet a client, they get a lovely folder, and it has one of the documents in there is the 10 Commandments. It's something that I try to explain to them point by point also. These are the things that they should not be doing and that they can do during a transaction. And just to highlight a couple things, one of the things is, you know, be really cautious about changing jobs in the middle of a transaction. It doesn't always mean disaster, but it can definitely add some hiccups, and what we're trying to do is provide a very smooth and seamless transaction, and those are one of the things that can, you know, put a hiccup in the road.
Right, we want to keep those hiccups minimum, so really that's the key to communication. If anything's going to be happening, changes are going to be occurring, especially with employment, you want to communicate that before anything happens, so that then we can kind of keep all those ducks in a row.
Yeah, I get a lot of phone calls on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, saying Home Depot is offering 0% interest. So I answer my phones on the weekends, and when I get those phone calls, my first thing I say is, look on the 10 Commandments, what's on there? And we cannot open a new credit card when we're in the middle of the home loan process. It has to wait until the keys are in hand.
Right, and a lot of times you want to make sure those things are insured and that we are for sure guaranteed a closing before you go out and start buying and spending some money for a property that we haven't actually closed on yet.
Exactly, because you don't want to have a garage full of furniture, because until they have the keys, it's not technically their home.
No.
So they don't want to have new furniture in a home that something may happen. And we have had very, you know, believe it or not, we had a seller who won the lottery, and she decided not to sell her home.
Oh, I believe it.
So there are situations, but even though they're rare, they do happen.
Right. All right. Well, those are some great things. We're going to talk about a couple more. We're just going to go ahead and take a quick break. So make sure you don't go anywhere. These 10 Commandments are great information. There's those do's and don'ts of financing. So make sure you stay tuned. We're going to talk about that. Also some more specifics on different type of loan products and programs that are out there. So stay tuned. You're listening to the Lianna Alvarez Show, Las Vegas Real Estate, The Insider's Edge on KLAV, 1230 AM radio, the talk of Las Vegas. Hello and welcome back, all my lifers. If you're just coming back from break with us, you are listening to the Lianna Alvarez Show, Las Vegas Real Estate, The Insider's Edge, here on KLAV, 1230 AM, the talk of Las Vegas. And we're here with Terri Garcia-Linares of Altera Home Loans. She's a mortgage lender in the Valley, been working in the industry for 13 years, has a very diverse background within lending, so she's able to give, you know, kind of a bigger picture than just the front end of loan originating. We talked about kind of what the process is. Before break, we were talking about the 10 Commandments. Before we give one more of the 10 Commandments, for those of you that are listening that want to have a free copy of these 10 Commandments, go ahead and send a text message to 702-497-3730 and just type in the word 10. We'll go ahead and get a copy out to you. Again, that's 497-3730. Text message the word 10 and we'll get that copy over to you, no obligation, right?
That's absolutely. We'll get that 10 Commandments over to you.
Okay, and then maybe give me one more little commandment that's something important. We don't want to give them all away.
One other commandment I'd like to talk about is do not make any large deposits into your bank account.
Ooh, but what if we win the lotto?
Well, I'm hoping you win the lotto, you probably buy the house free and clear.
Yeah, probably not going to get that financing.
However, actually winning the lotto we could document. So it's all about documentation. So what we're trying to do is make this process as smooth as possible. And if you have several deposits into your bank account that, somebody lent you some money and now you're collecting all that money back from people and because you're getting ready for the home purchase, those are deposits that are very tricky to actually be able to generate where they came from.
Right, because I get a lot of calls from my clients saying, I don't understand this, I've got a good job, I've got good credit. The lender's asking me to explain every dollar that's going in and out, every dollar I spend of my own money. They want me to write, an explanation or tell them exactly what's going on. Like, is there a certain price range or dollar amount that the lender starts kind of looking at more so, or are we talking about every Starbucks needs to be documented?
Well, it's mostly about deposits.
Okay.
We don't really scrutinize what's going out unless they are short funds for how much they need to close. But it's deposits coming in. It's because we have a regulation that none of the funds being used in a home transaction can be illegal funds.
Right, we want to make sure it's all legal.
Yes. And unfortunately, we cannot document cash. We don't know where it came from. If you got a refund check from your taxes, let's say, or you had a refund from a department store or something, usually you get a check, you can make a copy of that check, and that can explain that deposit.
Okay.
Simple, easy.
So it's really the cash.
It's the cash that's the problem, because that is very difficult to document.
Okay, and so basically I just want to make sure nobody's taking any of that, illegal. Out there illegal mafia money or something like that. I don't know.
I guess live in Vegas.
I'm on a mafia theme today, I guess, between the closers, the cash deposits, but we will make sure everything is legitimate and that there's not going to be any issues. So if you know all these kind of inside secrets and commandments up front, there are things that then you're not trying to go back and verify or correct.
Right, and we always try to say 60 days. We want any money that's going to be used in a loan transaction to be seasoned for 60 days.
Okay,
so
and season...
two banking cycles.
Okay, and season just means that it's been deposited and it's sat there.
It's sat there for 2 banking cycles, yes.
Okay, wonderful. So kind of in talking with loans, how about you give the listeners a little bit of information? I mean, there's so many different types of loan products out there.
There is, and just to be really general, the majority of the loans right now closing are 30-year fixed, either conventional or FHA loans.
Okay.
We also do a handful of VA loans, and then we do first-time home buyers with down payment assistance.
Oh.
We do a lot of different programs. There's still ARM loans out there, but the majority of loans are 30-year or 15-year fixed loans.
And can you just explain ARM loans?
ARMs are adjustable rate mortgages.
Perfect.
So they're usually they adjust after 5 years, 7 years, sometimes 10 years, sometimes 3 years. It depends which ARM you do. So the rate is actually adjusting. And that was a lot in the news in the past years, because that's what a lot of people felt what caused the bubble to burst was these ARM loans, because when they became time to readjust, the rate skyrocketed and people couldn't refinance because their values weren't there and the payments went too high. So that is, what is out there on ARMs is kind of a little bit negative, but it does work for the right the right buyer.
Okay, and if you are just joining us, by the way, you're listening to the Lianna Alvarez Show, Las Vegas Real Estate, The Insider's Edge, here at KLAV 1230 AM, the talk of Las Vegas. I'm your host with Lianna Alvarez, and we're here with Terri Garcia-Linares of Alterra Home Loans and just discussing financing, loan programs. We had the 10 commandments. Now we're kind of discussing the type of loan products. I know you mentioned, VA loans as well, which are for, our veterans or people that serve within active duty, correct?
Correct. And there is also, the VAs can be in the National Guard also.
Okay.
So there's definitely restrictions, but most lenders are all available. They can do VA loans, and we definitely can do VA loans. 0% down.
That's great.
The VA loan. It's 100% financing.
So it's kind of giving back to those individuals that have done something for our country.
Exactly. And they also have, restrictions on closing costs. So the veteran knows basically what they have to come in with right off the bat.
Okay, which is great. So even though 0% down, it's a great program. Again, just making sure that borrower knows up front what exactly is expected of them.
0% down payment. And unfortunately, it's not 0% closing costs. Yeah.
Okay, but
so that's something that we go through right at the beginning of the process, so they know how much money they have to have.
Okay, and then let's talk about, what's the difference between, say, like an FHA and a regular conventional loan?
Well, an FHA loan typically, and in the past, has been explained by a first-time home, used a lot by first-time home buyers. 3.5% is the minimum down payment. We do have a program at Alterra where you can just do as little as 0.5% down on an FHA loan.
Really?
Yes. So that's something that we offer. But typically it's a lower down payment, 3.5%. It has to be an owner-occupied property. And by first-time home buyer, it usually means that they haven't owned a home in the last 3 years.
Okay.
So that kind of defines what a first-time home buyer is.
And then they just changed some of the guidelines for FHA this year, correct?
They did. Mortgage insurance, which a lot of people talk about with FHA, it used to be able to be, once you had a certain amount of equity into your home, you could petition to get that mortgage insurance removed. Now that mortgage insurance is for the life of the loan. So the only way to really get out of mortgage insurance once you have the equity is to refinance your home.
Okay, great. And then let's talk about jumbo loans. What comes into play? What's the guidelines that differentiate a borrower from a conventional versus a jumbo loan? It has to do with the loan limits, correct?
Absolutely. Yep, that's very true.
Okay.
The loan limits and anytime you exceed the loan limit in the valley, then you would have to purchase purchase under what's called a jumbo loan.
Okay.
The pricing is different. The down payment requirements are different. So there's definitely different guidelines and outlines versus a conventional and jumbo loan.
Right. So if you are out there listening and you're thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many different types of loans out there and loan products, I'm not even sure where to start. This is the exact reason that you want to write down this number. Go ahead and send a text message of buyer over to us, and no obligation. Terri will get in touch with you. The phone number is 702-497-3730. Again, that's 497-3730. Go ahead and text message buyer to us, and Terri will get in touch with you, see what the best product is, maybe give you the options and explain pros and cons for each one so that you can decide really what's best for you and your family.
Yeah, and I would like to touch base a little bit on the conventional. Anytime there's a conventional loan, and that's important to have a loan officer who really understands the different programs, because we do have conventional loans that have as little as 3% down, and the mortgage insurance is a lot less than on an FHA loan. So the right buyer can go into a conventional loan with the same low down payment as an FHA, but their payment comes out less because their mortgage insurance is less.
Which is great because, one, it will increase their buying power, what they can actually qualify to purchase with. And then also, keeping your payments down and as minimal as possible is always better. It means more money in your pocket, right?
Yep, and I had a client just come in this last week after he got off work at 6 o'clock. We sat down with my dual screen. I showed him both FHA and the conventional, and he always thought he was going to go FHA, because he was a first-time home buyer. But we looked at it, and it actually saved him about $80 a month, and over a lifetime of a loan, it's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, and always great to hear those actual real stories that are helping individuals really save money and be able to, make the best and the most decision really for their families on buying and that whole basis.
And the great thing is, even with some of the down payment assistance programs, you can use conventional financing. It doesn't always have to be FHA loans.
Oh, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because actually next week we're going to be having an individual. We'll give you a little bit more information about it in the next segment, so you'll definitely want to stay tuned. But we're going to be talking about down payment assistance next week, as well as kind of title and escrow. So you want to definitely stay tuned. We're going to go ahead and take a break. You are listening to the Lianna Alvarez Show, Las Vegas Real Estate, The Insider's Edge on KLAV 1230 AM, the talk of Las Vegas.
In 3, 2, 1.
And welcome back, lifers. You are listening to the Lianna Alvarez Show, Las Vegas Real Estate, The Insider's Edge. I'm here with Terri Garcia-Linares. I'm Lianna Alvarez, your host, and we are here on KLAV 1230 AM, the talk of Las Vegas. If you're just joining us, we've been talking about the loan and the financing process. Terry's been kind enough to give us a little bit of insight. We talked about the 10 commandments, those do's and don'ts within financing, as well as a little bit of background on what the different types of loans are, what's available, and really I think the importance of identifying and what's the best loan product for the borrower, correct?
Yep, that's what we're all about. We're about finding individual. We don't want to put somebody in the masses. It's about an individual person. Each transaction is very specific and individual to somebody.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing for really everyone that's out there listening, is to know that every real estate transaction is very individual and
Unique.
different. They're very unique. And depending on who's involved, there's a lot of different hands involved in a real estate transaction, between the buyer side, the seller side, financing, escrow, title. There's so many different, layers to the cake, that really knowing that you're working with somebody that you can trust, that has your best interest at heart, is really probably one of the best situations, just so that you understand the process, you're informed, you're educated, you know exactly what the expectations are from you, and you're able to make sure that you don't do any of those, those 10 commandment items we were talking about.
Yeah, I really like to, one of the things I like to say to my clients is, there's a lot of things in a loan transaction, a process, that I don't have any control over. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot that I do. And all those things that I do have control over, I'm going to make sure I can control them. The rest is up to somebody else, a third party. And all we can do is be prepared if any of those things come up, punches come up, and be ready to knock them down. One of the best analogies I like to use during the program, during the process, is it's kind of like a courtroom. The underwriter, which we haven't spoke a lot about, but they're like the judge, and I'm like the lawyer. And so I am presenting the best case I can to the judge, so that they will approve this loan. And so the packaging, the explanations, having all that stuff up front, so that there doesn't leave any questions for the underwriter to guess or assume. We all know what assume means. Mm-hmm. So as long as there's no assumptions made by the underwriter, we've already filled in all those gaps, it makes it easier for the underwriter to approve the loan with minimal conditions and minimal, more documentation.
So really, the difference is you want to make sure that everything's packaged, it's presented complete, so that the underwriter doesn't have to come back and ask for those additional explanations or, additional documentation. They're probably always going to ask for something, but the better the originator is, the better the loan product is being presented, the faster and smoother the process, right?
Yep, that's what our main goal is for anybody involved in a mortgage transaction, is to make the whole thing go smooth. We definitely want to make this a thing to remember, but not in the bad way.
Right, exactly. So something that, everybody that's out there listening really is the importance. And I don't know, do you have, in the lending business, do you have those part-time loan officers, or is everybody pretty much full-time? I know in real estate there's a huge differentiation between a full-time realtor and a part-time realtor. Is it the same on the loan?
I think, in the past few years, the part-time loan officers have really diminished a lot.
Okay.
It's so much more paperwork involved than back in the day, when we had the stated, and we didn't even have to provide a bank statement, or, pretty much the file just included a credit report. But now there's just so much documentation. It would be difficult for a loan officer to be a part-time, but that's not saying that there aren't any out there.
Right. And
I just come across mostly full-time loan officers.
Right. And you are, obviously a full-time loan officer. If I heard you correctly, you said you take phone calls on the weekends, so are you working 7 days a week?
I do take phone calls on the weekends. I do a lot of appointments after hours. As you know, this is Vegas, so there's a lot of shift differentials. We got people working all sorts of shifts, so you got to make the time in order to make everything work. And of course I do that. I don't have banking hours.
Right. And it's, I even had an experience yesterday with a client that, works those odd shifts, doesn't go to work till 6 p.m. So the biggest thing is having somebody that is willing to support your work schedule and adjust to you, rather than trying to make you, fit into their specific schedule or even their location. I mean, you go out to clients as well directly.
Yeah, I have a quick story. I had, lots of times when we get phone calls in the evenings at night, past, 11 o'clock at night, it kind of scares us. So I saw a phone call coming in at 7:02, and I think it was like 11:30 at night. And it, my heart beat, because I thought my friend's somebody's in trouble. So I answered it, and it was a client.
11:30
at night. I can't believe you answered your phone. I was just going to leave you a voice message. I took the whole application right there at 11:30 at night. And the next day we had her pre-approved, and she was going out shopping.
See, now that's what's going to make the difference. Rather than trying to, I hear stories where somebody had a lender, however they found them, who knows, but basically they write an offer, the offer gets accepted, and they have no idea what's going on with the loan process, because they can never get a call back or hear from the lender. So yeah, the fact that you're picking your phone up, although I probably don't necessarily want to advise everybody to call at 11:30 or 12 a.m.
Well, not always will I be awake at that hour. That was one of those usual evenings where I was awake at 11:30. Most people will testify I'm asleep by 10 o'clock.
Yeah, well, those, real life stories are always great. The testimonials, really identifying the wins for each individual client, because it really is about each individual.
And everyone has their own story.
Right. By the way, if you're listening, you are listening to the Lianna Alvarez Show, Las Vegas Real Estate, The Insider's Edge, here at KLAV 1230 AM radio, the talk of Las Vegas. I'm your host, Lianna Alvarez, and we're here talking with Terri Garcia-Linares of Altera Home Loans. And also, if you're just tuning in and you're listening, you want to stay tuned, because we're going to continue talking about great information even as the show continues every week. We're here every Sunday at 2 p.m. And you can always touch base with us directly, 702-497-3730. Those of you that have been listening to the show, if you are interested, reach out. Talk to Terri, talk to me, send a text message that says qualify. Even if you're thinking about buying a home, or possibly even a renter, and thinking maybe you could purchase a home and be paying the same monthly payment towards a mortgage than to somebody else's mortgage and paying rent, you want to send a text message of qualify. No obligation, just find out what your options are. Obviously, the more informed you are, the more educated, the more you're able to, step that one step closer to financial freedom. Again, that number is 702 497-3730, or for those of you that are really active on social media, we are on Facebook, and that would be facebook.com/Lianna Alvarez Show, and that's Lianna with 2 N's, Alvarez Show. So definitely come check us out. We've got all kinds of good information for you.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to anybody that sends in that text message. A lot of the times we get our information from social media, from the internet, from our friends. A lot of that information is somewhat true, but sometimes it's not all the way true.
Yeah, and I think we always have clients that come back to us and say, well, I heard this, or I spoke to this person. And
my friend told me this, my neighbor told me that.
And a lot of times that basis is maybe not exactly accurate, or it may be accurate, but for a different situation.
Yes, and like we talked about, each transaction is its own individual self. So they may tell you what happened to them, and most of the time what I figured out is not a lot of the times people don't want to say all their financial information.
Right.
They just tell you general things like, well, I was able to do this and I was able to do that. Well, you might not know the backstory or everything that they haven't, they've not been able to, tell you, and they don't want to tell you. So it's really important. That information is great to get things started and just start the conversation of mortgage loans, but definitely to speak to a professional, somebody who's done it for many, many years, would be your next step.
Okay, and we are actually going to be kind of, winding down the show.
Already?
I know, it goes so quickly, doesn't it?
It does.
So what are, just a couple of those, buyer sassy secrets, financing, underwriting secrets that you really want to, just make sure that the listeners walk away with the show with?
Well, one of the things that I would definitely put out there is make sure you're working with somebody that has been doing this for a while, that is professional. Like, I have a lot of clients that have different jobs, and I would never, employment, I would never try to do their job.
Right.
So it's definitely important to do somebody who's well-versed, that knows what they're doing. That's, I think, one of the biggest, secrets out there.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, we could go on and on with all this great information, but we're pretty much out of time. So if you'd like to discuss anything related to today's topics with me directly, also with Terri, go ahead, send us a text message or call us directly at 702-497-3730. Next week, we've got some great guests. For those of you that are listening, that want a fair shot at owning a home, or a buyer or seller trying to figure out what exactly title and escrow are, then you'll definitely want to tune in to next week's show, as we're going to have Equity Title. And then we're also going to have a special guest, Eileen Fitzgerald, who's CEO of NeighborWorks America, talking about the LIFT program. That's one of those first-time home buyer down payment assistance programs. So it's going to be very interesting and some great information. This is Lianna Alvarez with Las Vegas Real Estate, the Insider's Edge, here on KLAV 1230 AM. We will be back next week at 2 p.m. Thank you so much, and thank you all my lifers.